I'm Debbie Godfrey, and this is the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. In season 2, I'm answering your questions about parenting. So feel free to go to the link in the description and leave me a voice message, and I may answer your question on this podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy today's pep talk.
Two kind of or three specific areas in kind of this process in the course where I can kind of put my finger back to, okay, I should have done this and I should have done that. I think it's really, the hard thing is trying to remember it in the heat of the moment, right?
Yeah, John, and that just comes over time. So every time you do that, it's a success, because what you're doing is, you're doing something in the moment that you wish you had done better or differently, but by going back and tracking back, like, okay, this is what I could have done differently, then the next time it comes up, you're much more likely to do something differently. So just the awareness, I think, is a big part of success, is being aware that there is a possibility of handling this a different way to get a different result. And so you're doing a great job with that. It's like every week you share stories where you've done it. So, keep that up, because it's working for you.
Yeah, I think in the last couple of weeks, kind of taking a look at it, it seems like the pattern in my mind starts coming through in terms of kind of what you're saying and sort of the underlying piece, and just how I interpret it is like it's maybe more communication than really what we had before, where everybody was kind of keeping things internalized, even during the arguments, that some of that stuff was going on, and maybe instead starting right away and kind of saying how you feel right up front to the person, right? And maybe getting it out there a little sooner rather than later, instead of kind of bottling it up. That seems to be kind of a pattern in terms of sort of what I've kind of taken away from this process. And then also with kind of, again, what you said to Val, and then last night, really when coming in at it, asking people if it's okay to help. Don't kind of assume that like you're there to fix it. It's come in at it with a different approach of having that conversation. And again, more communication about it, instead of just coming in to do that thing for them. Seems to be kind of like the two themes that I've kind of noticed anyways through the process.
Yeah, and that's great coaching for all of us in all of our relationships, really. I mean, think about how much better our relationships would be if we communicated those feelings up front, instead of letting them fester until they get to that blow-up stage, which is what you and Paige used to do, And so, now having this thing where, okay, we're going to talk our feelings through first and communicate them. Oh, what a relief. Maybe we don't have to do the blow-up, or maybe we don't have to do the blow-up so intensely, And
it's just acknowledging it, right? Acknowledging what you're feeling at that point in time, and just kind of owning it a little bit more with her, that it's like, I'm getting frustrated as well, right? Instead of trying to feel like you have to react to it and deal with it. It's funny, like both the kids, Paige is like me and Val is like Madison, but they're an amplified version, I think, of like, I know my mom has always called me a very willful child, but I don't think I was anywhere near willful as Paige. I don't remember being that willful. But she takes it kind of to her own level. But I think it's interesting that there's two exactly the same, one for each of us.
I know, isn't that amazing? Yeah, that's so. And it's just so, to me, it's just so awesome the way, like I said, that our kids are perfectly designed for us. It's like, it's no accident these are your kids, right? That they're, it's the perfect opportunity to learn to do it differently and in a way that lets those girls be seen and heard and understood, And that's the gift you have to give them of wow, this is so much like me when I was growing up, and maybe how it was handled with me didn't always resolve my feelings or make me feel good about myself or seen or heard or understood. So I have an opportunity now not just to parent you more effectively, but to heal that in me that wasn't parented very effectively. And so it's a beautiful process when you go through it. And I think that's why, Valerie, you were saying how much, you love and adore Paige, that you haven't lost that even in the middle of this, of these fights and these blow-ups and all this stuff. It's because of that, that admiration and that respect for that essential quality that is so much like John. I mean, you love these people because of that. It's not that you like the negativity, but it's the whole person. And so that it's a beautiful. It's why our families are so connected and so purposeful together. It's just we all belong together, and it's acknowledging that and growing in it like you guys are that makes it worthwhile, and makes it feel good rather than feeling bad. Because when we're all pushing each other's buttons, it feels terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that this course has taught me is not to. I'm a fairly uptight person.
Oh.
I'm trying to just not stress so much about the little things. I know you mentioned something about, I think it was your son on a wood pile, and
yes,
he was, gonna fall, and you knew he was gonna fall, but you knew he wasn't gonna really, really hurt himself, sort of thing, and you thought this will be his way of learning not to do it again. So I'm trying to be a bit more that way about things, even just in terms of the fun that we have and the things that they would like to do in terms of making messes. When you know it's going to turn out badly, just let it happen anyways, because nobody's getting hurt and nobody's going to die because of it. And it makes them happy and want to have fun. Then it's worth it in the end, I think.
Yeah, and there's lots of good stories about parents finding ways to do that. I have one mom that was a real, I don't know if you're like this, but in her structuredness, she was very clean freak. Like the house was always perfect. So if the kids made any messes, that was what would freak her out. And so she walked in the kitchen one time, and her little guy, I think he was about 3, he had a handful of grapes, and he was taking the grapes and he was dropping them on the floor and then stepping on it and smashing it, and then picking up his foot and staring at it. And then he'd throw another one down and he'd step on it and smash it, and he'd move his foot away and he'd look at it. And she looked at him, and her first instinct was to freak out because there's smashed grapes all over the clean floor. But then when she saw what he was doing and realized, he was so intense in it, and it was just so special. And so she actually got down there with him, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he just looked up, and he was so excited, and he was showing her what he was doing. And so she just played with him for a few minutes, and and looked at his world through his eyes, and then gently, once that kind of played its way out, she went and got the sponge and said, "Okay, it's time for us to clean this up," and she had him help her clean it up so that he didn't get away with making a big mess. He got to help clean it up and see that if you do make a mess like that, you have to clean it up. But she just felt so good about herself of not reacting how she usually would have with the, got to have everything clean kind of thing. And, I had another mom that was so strict with, rules and order, and so this is weird, and I'm not suggesting this, but I didn't suggest it then. She came up with this herself, but she got up one day, and I don't know if the kids asked her first. I think the kids asked her, can we have cake for breakfast or some crazy thing like that? And she's like, sure. And she just let them have cake for breakfast just to break herself out of this mindset of, how everything has to be done a certain way. It's like, what the heck? If you have cake one day for breakfast, you're not going to die. Let's do something different and get me out of my rigid mode of, always having to do things right or perfect or a certain way. And that was just a breakthrough for her of, being able to make other decisions in other times, being more flexible rather than so strict. It's not like she ever fed her kids cake for breakfast again. It was just a way to break out of her rigid mold that she was in. And so that, I think that's what you're describing, that
Yes.
process of coming to, like, okay, how can I just break out of this and and just be in the moment with these kids, and then know everything's going to land where it's supposed to land, and we'll all be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Although it's still hard sometimes, but yes, I'm
Oh
trying.
yeah. And that's the thing, and this goes back to what John was talking about, of the awareness. When you notice that discomfort or the urge or the impulse to control or clean or whatever it is, you get to a better choice point with it. It's like you see it, you go, okay, I'm about to control this situation, and you can choose to go forward and control it, or to choose not to. And having the choice, I think, is what gives you the peace of mind as a parent. It's like you're not compelled, and you're not forced, and you're not doing it unconsciously. You're actually choosing. And if you choose to control, then it's good. It means that your parental intuition is kicking in and saying, I need to have this control here. And that's okay. And just trust your judgment that you need that to happen at that moment. Yeah, because your parental intuition is getting better and better honed. The more tools that you have behind it, the better it is. So when you have to make those snap decisions going forward, you're just going to keep trusting yourselves more. Sometimes you're going to be more flexible, and sometimes you're going to be more strict. And in the moment, you won't have time to think it through. You're just going to act, and you're going to have to. And you're trusting yourself to act, because you've got enough tools to draw from, that your actions are going to actually turn out better more often than they would have 15 weeks ago.
Thank you for listening to today's Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast. If you're into season 2 and you're listening to all these great questions that the parents have, and answers and ideas for what to do in all these different situations with your kids, please help us out. Like, share, subscribe, and especially leave us a positive review. All of that helps the podcast grow, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again for being here, and happy parenting.